Right. We got things to do. We got things to do, as they say. Let's get to work here. A lot of economic data out today. Doesn't look like there's really any reaction to it. The market is just kind of grinding higher for the little bit. I am in my childhood bedroom, goofing around at the mom's house for a little bit. If anybody's in the Detroit, I'll be here for a few days. I think, Alexa, you might be around unless you are going to the Caucasus Mountains for Christmas. Let me know. I'll try to sneak out and come your way. I think you're in Brighton. If anybody else is rolling around, let me know. We've got ourselves a slightly higher open on the market. Like we're like in this weird, we're in like a little bit of a weird grind zone. You people are just tired of like coronavirus kind of news, and so I think we're just kind of grinding higher. We've absorbed a good chunk of the selling that's been happening of recent. So now we just kind of dicker and deal. December, really, in all things considered, like the market itself is just in a kind of a big long range. That's how I would look at it. And even like even though you're near highs, like range trading is the toughest type of trading to do. When you're trending in the all-time highs, like you have your MAs and everything, supporting you and everything is hunky-dory. When you're stuck in range, it's like one day it can be awful, one day will look hot, one day will be awful. And sometimes it'll even feel like you're taking a fucking guess, right, on like which way the market's going to go. That's the essence of range trading on any given day. What looks good is bad and what looks bad is good, and so on and so forth. But overall, like you could see the market showing some signs of healing. A couple things that are good is there's been some speculative fever coming back in some of the smaller cap stocks, and you're starting to see some decent moves on news and things like that on some of the larger tech stocks and all this kind of fun stuff that's going on. So let's take a look at market breadth here real quick before we kind of get into the stocks. So you can see here, like in terms of market breadth, you've got a nice bounce. So the T2107 is the percentage of stocks right over its 200-day moving average. It's been very, very low for a long time. We are getting a slow bounce in this. So we're getting an increase in market breadth. The T2108, which is one of the ones I've used for much longer periods of time, almost 10 years. Anytime it gets under 20, what you're starting to see is a big oversold reading in a majority of stocks, right? Because it's a percentage of stocks above right moving averages. And when you're under 20, it's telling you like there's so many stocks that have been decimated that it's like what's bad is good, right? It's actually gone too far, too fast, and we're due for like a little bit of a reversion. Now, some of the things I think, to keep track of, we've seen an increase in breakouts here. So these are 4% breakouts. If you see here the last like 5-6 days, you're starting to get some big market breadth thrusts, which is right when you start to see like hundreds of breakouts per day. So when you start to see like the 500, 600, 700, that's indicating, right, that there's some stocks that are actually making significant moves, because when you look at market breadth, you don't want to think about like stocks that are just up versus down, but you want to be thinking about stocks that are making significant moves. And so we're starting to see a little increase in that. Now, yesterday, if you had trouble trading, yesterday was dead. Like market breadth was dead. We had various stocks moving up or down. And so that's what gives you kind of that chop factor. And that's something to really kind of just think about, like even when you're intraday trading and stuff, take a look at, around 10 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, take a look at market breadth and start to see like if there's really any stocks that have been thrusting around at the open. If those breakout numbers are really low, you may just get an extended chop day, and it'll tell you to either reduce your position size or take your foot off the gas. Let's take a look and see if we've got any just little earnings plays or PR plays, and then we'll dicker and deal into the regular watch list. And if you guys got any tickers you like, then hold on here. What the fuck? Hold on here. Is anybody else's TC2000 Gapper scan not working? Hold on here. Fucking I reboot my TC2000 here. TC2000 a little bit funky sometimes. IONQ, who just asked that? That was that was a good looking stock yesterday. I think that could be something worth taking a little gander on. Hold on, rebooting my TC2000. Oh yeah, we back. All right, cool. Let's get that list going again. By the way, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. Happy Chanukah. All that fun stuff for the Indians. We love Indian people. We love Christmas. All right, so let's see. We got some earnings plays coming out. This ENSC. You know what? With SOPA making such a move, you might start to see a little bit of flavor coming back into these names. If you look at like a longer term chart here, like this 5-6 zone is pretty important. Now, today is Thursday. In general, we don't like to trade small caps on Fridays. It is Christmas, but today we have to kind of treat it like Friday because tomorrow the market is closed. I would add this. I probably won't trade it myself, but you never know. No small caps on Fridays. All right, let's take a look at some of these other ones. This is a turd. I used to just see something like this. This is CLD. This is an ultra short natural gas. You can see like natural gas buck being the dumper. SOPA is still cruising. You know, if it starts to build over yesterday's highs, you should be able to get some, more juice in this. Now, obviously, this thing is a big gelatinous turd for the most part. Like this thing was $80, right? It's come all the way back down. So it's got some room to go, but it is a turd. Like, you have to always just reconcile that. Like this is something, your hold times in this should be like in the minutes, not hours. Well, you can still get yourself, a little bit of heat on this. One thing with these things is they knife, meaning they got wicks all over the place. Like if you see like ARC, a lot of these small caps are doing this, like where they just spike up like 10, 20%, and then they wick down. And you're seeing this like quite a bit. So that's why it makes it really difficult to trade, especially if you're a new trader. If you get stuck in these wicks, like you're trading 5, 10,000 shares, 2,000 shares, whatever it might be. I mean, that's like, that's a way to just ruin your lunch right there. So you got to be careful on these. So not my particular flavor, but we're going here. This VLAN's a turd. So Nicholas popping up here in the morning. Nicholas shares game after tweeting more deliveries to come. What the fuck does that even mean? More deliveries to come. Our first customer delivery done. Hopefully they didn't roll it down the hill. Says they signed a letter of intent. Sale of Nicola 100. This might pick up some steam. I'm not sure. This thing is like a huge turd, but in general, if it does hold here, it could be worth it's on a dead bottom. If you really think like this 9 zone has like been like a huge support, if it starts to pick up some steam, right, and you start to see it like doing a little marination station around 10, I think it might be worth a gander just for a little Christmas spirit. Las Vegas Sands, man, casinos stink to trade. They really do. There's nothing. Casinos, retail stocks, they stink to trade. All right, let's take it. It's not that many earnings plays out today or PR plays. Let's see if we got a thing on the downside. Be nice if we got like, oh man. Yeah, so this is a buyout play, so that's no good. JD, Chinese stocks. What's up with this? 10-cent slashes stake in JD.com too. Okay. I got this 49-inch monitor at my mom's house. It's like I gotta like lean over to see like the corners. They're almost too wide. They're almost too wide. This, I'm not really sure on this one. I'll probably come back to that. Rally's a turd. These are all inverse ETFs. And by the way, you can on your TC2000, you can X out from your gapper scans, you can X out like all the ETFs and stuff. Like you don't have to, you don't have to do all these like, inverse ETFs and stuff. So if you don't want them to show up on your gap scan, you can just X those out. So it's just showing stocks that'll take your list like and make it a little bit easier. So let's talk about just in general what was happening in the market yesterday and then kind of what we need to do. So we had like a little bit of, a grind day. So we had a big trend day. And then, yesterday was like a little bit of a grind, even though we kind of came up. There was only really this like whole move was on, Tesla and a couple stocks going. A majority of stocks were really chopping around yesterday where they were giving like the look of like, oh, they're longs, then they're shorts. Like you were seeing this all over the place, like spikes and then rollovers. And you're seeing a lot of like names like, like this NVIDIA had a 5-minute spike, and then it just rolled over. And so you were seeing a lot of that where, like this AMD, like see, this is like a 10-minute spike and then it rolled over. And so what's ended up happening is even though the indexes were up, Tesla's really lifting a lot of that. A majority of the stocks were doing nothing. And then if you're also just looking at market breadth and things like that, then, what you would notice is, right, there were very few breakouts. So yesterday was a little bit of a challenging day, even though the indexes were going, pretty good. So what we want to be doing is like, if you have a rest day in the market, but like the previous day was a huge run, then what you want to be doing, like when you're running your scans, is not necessarily running scans that say like what was hot yesterday, but what was hot 2 days ago, right? And what was resting yesterday. So like you'll see a lot of these stocks like AMD, they had inside days yesterday, after like a big trend day. So that's like a, pretty bullish, like that's a really good setup that we like to do. So like I would add like this, MU had, oh, fucker's already going without us. MU had a really tight inside day yesterday. So after their earnings beat, they had an inside day. So that's a tight range, right? Inside the previous day's range. Like that one's going to be hot. So I would add AMD. I would add MU as, inside days. Technically TTD also had, right, an inside day on it. So like I would add like all three of those. There's a handful of other ones like SQ did the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised to see SQ go. So SQ had a momentarily spike at the open, and then, essentially it stayed inside the previous day's range. So that's like a good setup. So if you start to see, a little bit of, if you start to see this thing start to pop up and, set some type of intraday pattern ORB or something along that end, that inside day, trigger should be okay. And then, you have the 9 EMA on top of it on the daily chart. So you'll have to trade around that. So it really needs to kind of clear 170-ish to really get going. And if it can do that, and, the range on this is like 10 points, right? So, even if the ATR, so always keep in mind the ATR on a particular stock. So if you have a level of resistance, say at like 171, and the stock is at 160, and the ATR is $10, then when it runs into resistance, even though, traditionally you're taught, right, a breakout is a breakout if it goes over resistance, if that ATR has been used up, then it's not going to have the steam it needs to really get past that level. So then the resistance resists. And that's why sometimes breakouts fail, because a stock doesn't have the gas it needs to, right, get over this thing. Now, in this particular case, the ATR is 10, it's at 167. So even if it gets into the resistance levels, it'll have the gas to actually get over it. That's when you'll have yourself like a nice little pizza party where you can get yourself going. Affirm, let me see what you guys, Miss Kathleen, let me see here. Miss Kathleen's asked about DWAC. This thing stinks to trade. Let me just tell you something. The liquidity on this is like non-existent, but a lot of times when a stock is consolidating, it may, just die down in volume. But there's something to be said, like, a lot of times, like you get a stock that pumps up really hard and then it just goes sideways and you think like every day, like, oh, is this it? It's basing, and they're just dead. And if you look at the intraday chart, like you wouldn't really wish this upon your worst enemy, would you? Well, you would, but like if you're like, say your frenemy was like getting into trading stock and you just sent them this chart, this intraday chart, you're like, yes, you should trade this thing. It's really difficult. And part of that is because it doesn't have any liquidity. So it just spikes up and it spikes down. So this is like something like, sure, it is a tight range, and you have like a level here that you can trade around. And, in this type of market where there's not much going on, there'll be some asshole that tries to push it at some point. The question becomes, is it do one of these where it's like, see, it doesn't take much volume to spike this thing like 3-4 points, right? So like, some jerk may spike this thing, but it could just come right back down because you don't have that liquidity. That happens a lot of times. When stock pumps up too much, it'll happen. Like if you guys remember like BTX, this is like, okay, so this stock's at like $5-10, it goes to $80. And then it comes straight down, and like you see all these roundings and you're like, oh man, this looks amazing. Like it used to be, because in your head, you're like, it used to be $80, right? But in your head, you're like, oh man, this is amazing. It's consolidating. And then it goes bam, and then it starts to round and you're like, fuck, this is amazing. But like, it's just come down so much, right? And the liquidity dries up. And so like in absence of news, they end up like just kind of like bam, 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 and then they just drift lower. I'm not saying that's going to happen to Decock over here, but like that gives me that feeling of like, okay, like it always looks like it's consolidating, but like it may just need one of those. It may need some news, get that flow going, get that hot flow going, that Jay Joshi hair. All right, let me see what you guys are watching here. Affirm. I'm not sure on Affirm, to be honest. I hate when people say to be honest. Like that's like an actually very stupid thing to say. Let's cut that out of our lexicon here. To be honest, like nobody's ever fucking honest, right? How about this? I don't like it. That's a lot easier to say, right? And the reason is this: it faded off all day yesterday. It's still under its MAs. Like, is this a bear flag? Is it a rounding? Is it a Virgo, an Aries? Is this a Leo? We don't really know what it is. And so if you don't know what it is, if you got to one-eye it, then it's not really something. Now, if we get a little inkling that the market's going to run this way, run that way, then sure, like we can go in and, we can do something like that. But in general, like you want to stay away from stocks where you're kind of one-eyeing it and you're like, is that a long or is that a short? Is that a bear flag or is that a rounding? When you don't know, then you just don't know. So I think that's, where you got to really go with this. SE, this is like another one that's, it's oversold, but in the end, it's like, okay, what do we really do with this thing? You had an inside day on it yesterday. I think, it really is just going to be market dependent. Now, this is like a kind of Chinese, Singaporean kind of company. So it does also get decimated with those. Like these kind of Asian companies, they stink to trade, right? They stink to trade. And after coronavirus and stuff, I mean, we can't even be supporting all this kind of these companies anymore. We're not going to be trading SC. But if we do, we're not going to smile while we do it. So this did have an inside day yesterday. It looked okay, but it's got a lack of liquidity and it's going to have a big monster cock spread on it. That's going to be a little bit tricky. So I go always, I think today's going to be light volume. I would go with higher liquidity names. Like if you're going to run an inside day scan, you go in, which are AMDs, a little MU. They're not sexy, but like they'll do the job. Today's just a day you try to make a few shekels, see what's going on. And then, you go in Christmas Eve with your head up high and your chest down. You say, like, I made some money day trading yesterday. What did you do? Right? Hey, Bob, good looking kids. Not. What did you do yesterday? Well, I was at the, doing some TPRS reports at certified paper. It's going great. I'm grinding. What did you do? Nothing, man. I was just sitting around in my undies all day doing a little trade. I trade for a couple hours, make a few G's, and then I'm out. That's how you want to do it today. Because remember, it's not a proper Christmas Eve unless you get to shame some of your cousins that you don't like, right? And everybody's got a couple of those. That's where you really want to go with it. So whatever you do today, you lock in those gains. You lock in those gains. You make $500, you lock that in. You make $1,000, you lock that in. Because tomorrow's going to be a misery, right? Nobody really likes eggnogs. Nobody really wants to send sing Christmas carols. Nobody really wants to see their cousin's kids run around with their heads cut off, and then you being like, oh, they're growing so fast. And in your head, you're like, yeah, like fat little heathens. You don't want to really do that, right? You'd rather be with your friends at a bar, watching basketball, telling war stories from the 90s of like, of high school. That sounds like a good time. You know what I mean? So lock in your games today. We go AMD, we go a little TTD, we go MU. Then, you know, if this Nikola holds and it is pushing, we can try to do a little goose and a gander on some of these. I'm not trading any small caps because if you get knifed on one of them, then your Christmas Eve is ruined because, you know, you really lose your conversation point. And I'm not going to do that. Hey, this BFRI did have a little bit of a rest day. This could probably get a little goosey today. So you may want to be able to, you know, you can do that too. I think that's it. I'll probably just trade a few hours today. Let's try to make good work out of it. Yesterday was a chop fest for a good chunk of the day, minus like 2 candles of glory on some stocks. We'll see what's going on here. But yeah, no need to be a hero. Mr. Hensley, what's going on, sir? How you doing? If I could turn back time. Yeah, this bird is nice. You know, if it's got the liquidity, you could trade it. You got a little bit of a rounded pattern. This thing, it did okay. It did about 5 million shares of volume. You can do it. JT, what's up, baby? How you doing, partner? Man, it's so cold in Michigan. You got to like warm up your coffee like every 5 minutes. It ain't right. It ain't right. And guys, by the way, on the other side of things, there's some good looking cryptos running around. Sand looks incredible. Sand looks really good. Matic is going to be a beast. We've been loading into the crypto chat with ENJ the last few days. You know, these are going to be all good looking. They're good looking God-fearing Christian stocks right there. These are going to be some heaters. Oh yeah, this sand I think could actually have some good juice out of it. You know, it needs to probably clear over like 530s, give or take. But if it can, then I think you're going to have yourself a nice one. You know, good day traders is Luna. If you want to just trade that thing back around, you get yourself some nice doohickeys there too. Fucking night. All right, man. Let's go do what we do, which is the do. All right, trade well. Trade fast. Don't be a hero, but always be a hero. There's not enough heroes out there. So you get a chance for glory. You know, sometimes you just got to take it. Let's go do what we do.